Dead Souls, Part 2, Chapter 1, Section 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Dead Souls, by Nikolai Vasilievich Gogol. Translated by D.J. Hogarth. Part 2, Chapter 1, Section 1. Read by Anna Simon. Why do I so persistently paint the poverty, the imperfections of Russian life, and delve into the remotest depths, the most retired holes and corners of our empire from our subjects? The answer is that there is nothing else to be done when an author's idiosyncrasy happens to incline him that way. So again we find ourselves in a retired spot. But what a spot! Imagine, if you can, a mountain range like a gigantic fortress, with embrasures and bastions which appear to soar 1,000 versts towards the heights of heaven, and, towering grandly over a boundless expanse of plain, are broken up into precipitous, overhanging limestone cliffs. Here and there those cliffs are seamed with watercourses and gullies, while at other points they are rounded off into spurs of green, spurs now coated with fleece-like tufts of young undergrowth, now studded with the stumps of felled trees, now covered with timber which has, by some miracle, escaped the woodman's axe. Also, a river winds a while between its banks, then leaves the meadowland, divides into runlets, all flashing in the sun like fire, plunges, reunited, into the midst of a thicket of elder, birch, and pine, and lastly speeds triumphantly past bridges and mills and weirs which seem to be lying in wait for it at every turn. At one particular spot the steep flank of the mountain range is covered with billowy verdure of denser growth than the rest, and here the aid of skilful planting, added to the shelter afforded by a rugged ravine, has enabled the flora of north and south so to be brought together that, twined about with sinuous hop tendrils, the oak, the spruce fir, the wild pear, the maple, the cherry, the thorn, and the mountain ash either assist or check one another's growth, and everywhere cover the declivity with their straggling profusion. Also, at the edge of the summit there can be seen mingling with the green of the trees the red roofs of a manorial homestead, while behind the upper stories of the mansion proper and its carved balcony and the great semicircular window there gleam the tiles and gables of some peasants' huts. Lastly, over this combination of trees and roofs there rises, overtopping everything with its gilded, sparkling steeple, an old village church. On each of its pinnacles a cross of carved gilt is stayed with supports of similar gilding and design, with the result that from a distance the gilded portions have the effect of hanging without visible agency in the air; and the whole, the three successive tiers of woodland, roofs, and crosses whole, lies exquisitely mirrored in the river below, where hollow willows, grotesquely shaped, some of them rooted on the river's banks, and some in the water itself, and all drooping their branches until their leaves have formed a tangle with the water lilies which float on the surface, seem to be gazing at the marvellous reflection at their feet. Thus the view from below is beautiful indeed, but the view from above is even better. No guest, no visitor could stand on the balcony of the mansion and remain indifferent. So boundless is the panorama revealed that surprise would cause him to catch at his breath, and exclaim, "Lord of heaven, but what a prospect!" Beyond meadows studded with spinneys and water-mills lie forests belted with green, while beyond, again, there can be seen showing through the slightly misty air strips of yellow heath, and again wide rolling forests, as blue as the sea or a cloud, and more heath, paler than the first, but still yellow. Finally, on the far horizon, a range of chalk-topped hills gleams white, even in dull weather, as though it were lightened with perpetual sunshine. And here and there on the dazzling whiteness of its lower slopes some plaster-like, nebulous patches represent far-off villages which lie too remote for the eye to discern their details. Indeed, only when the sunlight touches a steeple to gold does one realize that each such patch is a human settlement. Finally, all is wrapped in an immensity of silence which even the far, faint echoes of persons singing in the void of the plain cannot shatter. Even after gazing at the spectacle for a couple of hours or so, the visitor would still find nothing to say save, "Lord of heaven, but what a prospect!" Then who is the dweller in, the proprietor of this manor, a manor to which, as to an impregnable fortress, entrance cannot be gained from the side where we have been standing, but only from the other approach, where a few scattered oaks offer hospitable welcome to the visitor, and then, spreading above him their spacious branches, as in friendly embrace, accompany him to the facade of the mansion whose top we have been regarding from the reverse aspect, but which now stands frontwise on to us, and has, on one side of it, a row of peasants' huts with red tiles and carved gables, and, on the other, the village church with those glittering golden crosses and gilded open-work charms which seem to hang suspended in the air. Yes, indeed, to what fortunate individual does this corner of the world belong? It belongs to Andrei Ivanovitch Tientietnikov, landowner of the canton of Thermalakan, and, withal, a bachelor of about 30. Should my lady readers ask of me what manner of man is Tientietnikov, and what are his attributes and peculiarities, I should refer them to his neighbours. Of these, a member of the almost extinct tribe of intelligent staff officers on the retired list once summed up Tientietnikov in the phrase, "He is an absolute blockhead," while a general who resided 10 versts away was heard to remark that "he is a young man who, though not exactly a fool, has at least too much crowded into his head. I myself might have been of use to him, for not only do I maintain certain connections with St. Petersburg, but also—" and the general left his sentence unfinished. Thirdly, a captain superintendent of rural police happened to remark in the course of conversation, "Tomorrow I must go and see Tientietnikov about his arrears." Lastly, a peasant of Tientietnikov's own village, when asked what his barin was like, returned no answer at all. All of which would appear to show that Tientietnikov was not exactly looked upon with favour. To speak dispassionately, however, he was not a bad sort of fellow, merely a star-gazer; and since the world contains many watchers of the skies, why should Tientietnikov not have been one of them? However, let me describe in detail a specimen day of his existence, one that will closely resemble the rest, and then the reader will be enabled to judge of Tientietnikov's character, and how far his life corresponded to the beauties of nature with which he lived surrounded. On the morning of the specimen day in question he awoke very late, and, raising himself to a sitting posture, rubbed his eyes. And since those eyes were small, the process of rubbing them occupied a very long time, and throughout its continuance there stood waiting by the door his valet, Mikhailo, armed with a towel and basin. For 1 hour, for 2 hours, did poor Mikhailo stand there. Then he departed to the kitchen, and returned to find his master still rubbing his eyes as he sat on the bed. At length, however, Tientietnikov rose, washed himself, donned a dressing-gown, and moved into the drawing-room for morning tea, coffee, cocoa, and warm milk, of all of which he partook but sparingly, while munching a piece of bread, and scattering tobacco ash with complete insouciance. 2 hours did he sit over this meal, then poured himself out another cup of the rapidly cooling tea, and walked to the window. This faced the courtyard, and, outside it, as usual, there took place the following daily altercation between a serf named Grigory, who purported to act as butler, and the housekeeper, Perfilievna. Grigory: "Ah, you nuisance, you good-for-nothing, you had better hold your stupid tongue." Perfilievna: "Yes, and don't you wish that I would?" Grigory: "What, you so thick with that bailiff of yours, you housekeeping jade?" Perfilievna: "Nay, he's as big a thief as you are. Do you think the barin doesn't know you? And there he is, he must have heard everything." Grigory: "Where?" Perfilievna: "There, sitting by the window and looking at us." Next, to complete the hubbub, a serf child which had been clouted by its mother broke out into a bawl, while a borzoi puppy which had happened to get splashed with boiling water by the cook fell to yelping vociferously. In short, the place soon became a babel of shouts and squeals, and, after watching and listening for a time, the barin found it so impossible to concentrate his mind upon anything that he sent out word that the noise would have to be abated. The next item was that, a couple of hours before luncheon time, he withdrew to his study to set about employing himself upon a weighty work which was to consider Russia from every point of view—from the political, from the philosophical, and from the religious, as well as to resolve various problems which had arisen to confront the empire, and to define clearly the great future to which the country stood ordained. In short, it was to be the species of compilation in which the man of the day so much delights. Yet the colossal undertaking had progressed but little beyond the sphere of projection, since, after a pen had been gnawed awhile, and a few strokes had been committed to paper, the whole would be laid aside in favour of the